Hello, and welcome to the technical commentary for the first episode of Corduroy, Private Lips. I am the director of this pilot episode, Peter Pickle Protrusions, and for the next 6 minutes, I will shed light on the creation of this episode. I was personally sought out by series creator and producer Mr. Rudolf Kaiser himself, due to my experience in directing law-based films. I only had 5 days to prepare shooting this episode and only 3 to do so, quite difficult obviously. I took the first opportunity that I could to meet the cast and crew that I would be working with. Mr. Corduroy himself personally greeted me at the entrance of the studio and took the time to show me around the sets and introduce me to everyone. After I had become accustomed to the studio and patted every single pair of firm young buttocks that I could, I immediately began to lay out and storyboard the opening sequence for the first episode with several other artists and set supervisors. Mr. Corduroy popped in early during this creative process and ad-libbed the entire opening monologue in front of us. Needless to say, we were very appreciative and quickly took heed of the anthropomorphic coat suggestions. Next in the pre-production came rounding up roughly 45 extras for all of the wide shots in the bar sequence, which of course comprises nearly 90% of the episode. This however proved much easier than imagined, as it turned out Mr. Corduroy also specialized in mass psychokinetic thought control, thanks to his enrollment at the Soviet Human/Coat Experimentation Center as a young child.
Don't be stingy on the candied corns.
The casting of the 2 main villainous characters in the first episode quickly came next. For the diabolical and murderous ex-wife of Detective Corduroy, Mr. Kaiser's own hideously physically deformed and horridly aged mother stepped in. The fishy fellow known as Charles Lillikippers was discovered writhing around half dead in the net of a sea-trolling vessel. Despite suffering from hook lesions and brain damage from the incident, the man was more than enthusiastic to take the role. Everything seemed to be going as smoothly as possible, and there didn't appear to be a single worry or concern on the closing horizon. However, near tragedy struck during the first take on the first day of shooting, when Mr. Corduroy strangled and nearly asphyxiated the young man playing the bartender to death, when he, quote-unquote, went stingy on the candied corns. It was at this point that we came to the mortifying realization that we were dealing with a microfiber man with a debilitating and self-destructive addiction. Not having anywhere near enough time to enroll the mentally ailing overcoat in any sort of a rehabilitation clinic, I'm not proud to reveal that we as a result were forced to feed the fire of his addiction, intravenously injecting processed cornmeal and caramelized sugar into his bloodstream constantly. There were several points when the poor fellow was so profoundly inebriated that we were forced to bring in a stand-in, a feces-stained jacket donated to us from a local dumpster diver, and a fishing pole which was used to prop it up. I think it goes without saying that this didn't go over terribly well with the people that be at Rude Co Studios. And to make matters worse, it then turned out that we had a set rapist on the loose, with the victims best described as, and I quote this directly, a horrifically overweight Welshman with a bowler's hat and a plethora of dingleberries down below. It still marvels me to no end how we were able to make our deadline and deliver this episode on time to the producers. If nothing else, working on this abominable series only further funded my belief in God, as there's no way this could have ever turned out as well as it did without the intervention of a guardian angel or something of the sort. Even more amazing is how well the episode turned out, visually speaking. My lifelong friend and brilliant cinematographer, Mr. Divinicus Vindictimus did a positively stunning job on lighting and photographing the episode, especially considering how extremely limited our resources were. If I recall accurately, all we were provided with was a pair of 99-cent flashlights from the local dollar store, an ultrasonic imaging system on loan from the hospital, a single lit cigarette, and a full box of wet and unusable matches. I should also probably mention that incredibly convincing stunt involving the four-door sedan being driven off the cliff wasn't a stunt at all. We were running completely on empty, with not a single dollar left in our pockets, and as a result, I was tearfully forced to lie to the recently engaged young stunt driver and tell him that there would be a large net underneath the cliff which would catch him and keep the car from falling into the ocean when he drove off. There isn't really a night that goes by since then that I don't sob myself to sleep face first into my pillow. I now have 7 different mood-altering pills I have to take at breakfast, along with 6 antipsychotics and 3 diuretics. But alas, I just continuously remind myself now that those horrible days are over. I now work as a professional toenail buffer at the local sushi and shrimp kebab gazebo. An unusual career change, I know, but at least I don't go home with a guilty conscience. Well, I suppose that about wraps up this director's commentary. From what I understand, Mr. Corduroy himself is set to do a commentary on this episode as well, though I doubt it will be anywhere near as insightful and candid as mine. Thank you for listening to this optional audio track, and please, if you have any spare change, you'll find my address hidden as an Easter egg on the main menu of this DVD. Just click on Mr. Corduroy's left pupil and it should pop up. Goodbye.